rain came without warning. I still remember the sound of raindrops hitting the window pane like someone knocking urgently on a door. There were only the two of us left in the library, thick with the mingled scent of old books and rain. He sat across from me, head down, flipping through a book whose title I could no longer recall. The fine strands of hair on his forehead swaying slightly in the breeze that slipped through the crack in the window. I don't remember how I found the courage. I only remember my heart pounding like it was about to burst out of my chest, my fingertips cold. I called his name. He looked up, those eyes meeting mine across a half-table distance with a hint of confusion, a touch of tenderness, since I know something I wasn't sure of. The rain outside grew heavier, but my voice came out as soft as a sigh. Do you want to come sit over here? I'm 26 years old, working in administration at a company that's neither big nor small. My life is uneventful, the same routine every day, looking forward to weekends from Monday to Friday, then feeling bored on the weekends, one by one. My friends have found partners, got unmarried, had children. Their social media feeds are full of joy. I'm still struggling in the quagmire of being single, occasionally feeling suffocated by my family's pressure to settle down. But today, I don't want to talk about those dreary things. I want to talk about a memory I've kept hidden in my heart for a long time. It happened 3 years ago. I had just graduated from university and was working as a part-time teacher at a tutoring center, teaching elementary school Chinese. To be honest, I find it funny myself, a journalism major teaching kids how to write essays. Sometimes life just doesn't follow logic. Meow meow, meow meow, meow meow me meow, hammy meow meow. This tutoring center at least gave me an interview, and I accepted the job with immense gratitude. The owner of the tutoring center was a woman in her 40s, named Fang. Everyone called her Sister Fang. Quite a bit stingy, she had rented an old two-bedroom apartment in a residential building as our office. The living room was converted into a workspace. One bedroom became a storage room, and the other became a conference room. Conference room was a generous term. It just had a long table, a few chairs, and walls covered with motivational slogans like "Heaven rewards the diligent" and "Excellence comes from hard work." It looked the part. I started just before the summer break, the busiest time of year for the tutoring center. Sister Fang hired several part-time teachers at once besides me. There were the current university students, a woman who had just quit her job to switch careers, and him. His name was Liu Shihong. The first time I heard that name, I couldn't help but glance at him again. Shihong, time and cold. It sounded like someone who never smiled, but he was nothing like that. Liu Shihong was a year older than me, also a recent graduate, majoring in Chinese language and literature. He was tall, over 1.8 meters, lean, wore a pair of silver-rimmed glasses, and when he smiled, his eyes curved into crescent moons, making him look incredibly gentle. He had his own style when it came to dressing. Nothing fancy or branded, but he put things together in a clean, comfortable way. His shirt sleeves were always rolled up to his forearms, revealing a stretch of well-defined wrist. The first time I saw him was on orientation day. Sister Fang asked us all to gather in the conference room for a simple get-to-know-each-other session. I had woken up late that day and rushed over. By the time I pushed open the door, several people were already seated. I was mortified, keeping my head down as I found an empty seat and sat down. Just as I sat, a voice came from beside me. Don't be nervous. Sister Fang hasn't started yet. I turned my head and saw Liu Shihong. He was leaning back in his chair, twirling a pen between his fingers. Wearing that lazy smile had made him look like he couldn't care less about anything, yet like he understood everything. His eyes were bright, not in an aggressive way, but with a gentle warmth that made you want to look at him again. I'm not nervous, I lied. He smiled, said nothing more, and went back to twirling his pen. That get-to-know-you session was simple. Each person introduced themselves, the subject they taught, what skills they had, and what they hoped for from the job. When it was Liu Shihong's turn, he stood up, his voice neither loud nor soft, his pace neither fast nor slow. He said he taught middle school Chinese, liked reading and writing, and hoped to learn something here while teaching his students well. When he sat back down, he glanced at me. It was just that glance, and for some inexplicable reason my heart skipped a beat. I didn't think much of it at the time, figured it was just an instinctive reaction to a stranger in a new environment. But looking back now, anything showed signs from the very beginning. I was just too oblivious to notice. Once the summer classes started, our lives became extraordinarily busy. The tutoring center's schedule was packed from 8 in the morning to 6 in the evening, with only a 1-hour break at noon. Liu Shihong and I taught different subjects. He taught middle school, I taught elementary school, and our schedules hardly ever overlapped. So even though we shared an office, we didn't actually have much time to talk. Still, certain things accumulated slowly. For example, every time I got to the office, I'd find a bottle of water on my desk. At a store-bought bottle, it was my own cup, filled with warm water. At first, I thought someone had made a mistake, but then I noticed that only my desk had one. I asked Sister Fang, she didn't know. I asked my other co-workers, they hadn't noticed either. I had a guess in my heart, but I wasn't sure enough to ask, and I didn't dare to. For example, every time I came back to the office after class, I'd find my chair pulled out slightly, as if someone had been sitting in it. Draped over the back of the chair would be a jacket not mine, but Liu Shihan's. Once I couldn't help asking him, have you been sitting in my chair? He was grading homework. Didn't even look up and casually said, oh, you weren't here. So I sat for a while. Thought I'd warm up your chair for you. Warm up at my chair? Yeah? Winter chairs are too cold. Uncomfortable to sit on. He said it so naturally, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. I stared at him, not knowing what to say. It was July. It was 35 degrees outside, and he was talking about winter chairs being too cold. But I didn't call him out on it. For some reason, I didn't want to. Another time, I got held up after work making phone calls to parents. By the time I packed up and was ready to leave, I realized the office was empty except for the two of us. He was sitting at his own desk, a book open in front of him, but he didn't look like he was reading it. Why haven't you left yet? I asked. Oh, I'd still got a few things to finish up, he said. It was a blank document, the cursor blinking away, has a single word written. Your few things is staring at a blank document. He paused, then laughed a little sheepishly. You caught me. What are you really waiting for? He looked at me, those eyes especially bright under the fluorescent lights. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but in the end just shook his head. Nothing. Come on. Let's walk down together. We stepped into the elevator together. The space was small, and we stood very close. I could smell the faint scent of his laundry detergent, fresh, by grass after a rain. His hands on his sides, and my fingers were just centimeters from his. If I moved just a little, I could touch him. The elevator went down, but my heart floated up. When we reached the ground floor, he asked, how are you getting home? Bus. Same. Let's walk together. We reached the bus stop. He glanced at the sign and said, my bus won't come for a while. What about you? Same here. The truth was, my bus arrived 5 minutes later, but I didn't get on. I pretended to look at my phone, pretending not to notice a bus pulling away in front of me. Liu Shihan didn't point it out either. So we stood there under the bus shelter, the stereotypes stretching our shadows long and long. The wind blew, carrying summer's characteristic stuff and scents and the chirping of cicadas. Neither of us spoke, but the silence wasn't awkward. Instead, it held a kind of imperceptible peace. Eventually, his bus came. Before he got on, he turned back to look at me. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. The bus drove away, and I stood alone on the platform, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. That was when I knew something had already changed. Ambiguity is like a summer thunderstorm. Before it arrives, the air is thick with moisture. You can feel it approaching, but you never know exactly when it will finally fall. That's how it was between Liu Shihan and me. We began developing unspoken little rituals. Every morning when I got to the office, the cup of warm water was always on my desk. I didn't know when he put it there, because by the time I arrived, he was already at his seat, head down reading or grading papers, as if that cup of water had nothing to do with him. During lunch breaks, he would coincidentally have bought an extra meal coincidentally from my favorite place, coincidentally couldn't finish it, and would ask if I could help him out. The first couple of times I believed him. After a while, even I wasn't dense enough to miss the pattern. But I didn't call it out. Neither did he. We were like two children playing hide and seek, each knowing exactly where the other was hiding, but neither willing to make the first move, as if the one who spoke first would lose. Once Sister Fang organized a KTV outing to celebrate the end of the summer session. We went to a place nearby, booked a large private room. A dozen or so of us crowded in loud and naively. So I'm not much of a singer, so I sat in the corner and listened. Liu Shihan didn't sing much either, but he didn't sit in the corner. He sat next to me, a fist distance apart. The room was dimly lit, illuminated only by the flickering screen, which made everyone's faces appear in the half-darkness. Someone was singing an old loud song, slow melody, lingering lyrics. I stole a glance at Liu Shihan and found him looking back at me. Our eyes met for 1 second. 2 seconds, say. Then he smiled and said softly, "This song is pretty good." "Yeah," I said, my voice barely audible. "Do you know it?" "No." "Want me to teach you?" As he said this, his body leaned slightly toward me. He was so close that I could feel the warmth of his breath. My heart was pounding like a drum. My mind went blank. I didn't know what to say. Just then, Sister Feng grabbed the microphone and shouted, "Come on, Lu Shihan, you're up. Stop just sitting there." Lu Shihan glanced at me, gave a helpless smile, and got up to take the mic. He chose an old-school folk song. His voice wasn't loud, but it was beautiful low with just a hint of rasp. When he reached the high notes, he put a little more verse into it, and his Adam's apple moved up and down. I watched him, my throat suddenly tight. When he finished, the room burst into applause. He handed the mic to the next person and came back to sit beside me. As he sat down, his knee brushed against mine. He didn't move it away. Neither did I. So we sat like that, knees touching, neither of us saying a word. The laughter, the cheering, they all faded into background noise. My world had shrunk to the small point of warmth that night. After it ended, he walked me home. We walked under the streetlight, our shadows falling one in front of the other, occasionally overlapping. I walked a little ahead. He followed a little behind, neither close nor far, just the right distance to catch each other's scent. When we reached my building, I stopped and turned to face him. He stopped too, looking back at me. "Here we are," I said. "Here we are. So I'll head up." "Okay." I turned and took 2 steps and then stopped. I didn't want it to end like this. I looked back at him. He was still standing there, hands in his pants pockets, the streetlight stretching his shadow long behind him. Lu Shihan. I called his name. "Yeah, you go below something." I wanted to ask him, "Why do you fill my water cup every day? Why do you always buy my favorite food? Why did you sit next to me at the KTV? Why didn't you move your knee away when it touched mine?" But I didn't. I just said good night. He smiled. That smile, under the streetlight, looked extraordinarily gentle. Shania. When I got upstairs, I looked down from the window. He was still standing there, looking up at the lit window of my room. When I pulled the curtain shut, my heart was beating faster than ever. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, tossing and turning, my mind full of him. His crescent moon eyes when he smiled, his long fingers twirling a pen, his Adam's apple moving when he sang, his hand meters from mine in the elevator. I kept wondering, does he like me or not? If he does, why won't he say it? If he doesn't, why does he do all those things? These questions crawled around in my head like insects, keeping me awake. I picked up my phone, opened our chat window, and typed "Do you like me?" Then deleted it. Typed "Xin. Thanks for walking me home tonight." Deleted it again. Typed "Did you get home?" Deleted that too. In the end, I said nothing. I put my phone face down on the nightstand and forced myself to close my eye. But my mind was full of him. The true taste of ambiguity isn't sweetness, it's torment. You can clearly sense that the other person is interested, but you just can't get a definite answer. You overanalyze every word they say, every gesture they make, trying to find evidence that they like you. But just when you're about to reach a conclusion, self-doubt creeps in. Am I reading too much into this? Is he like this with everyone? This constant fear of gaining and losing is more tortuous than unrequited love. This state between Lu Shihan and me lasted nearly 2 months. Our relationship grew increasingly subtle. Our co-workers started teasing us. Sister Fang would sometimes look at us meaningfully and say, "You two work really well together." Every time that happened, Lu Shihan and I would deny it at the same time, then fall silent at the same time, then feel awkward at the same time. Once when the office was empty except for us, he suddenly asked me, "Shania, have you ever thought about what kind of person you want to end up with?" I was organizing my lesson plans and paused at his word. "What kind of person?" I repeated, pretending to think. "Yeah, like personality, looks, career, that sort of thing." "Never thought about it." I lied. "Really never?" "Really?" I kept lying. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "I have." My heart lurched, but I kept my composure. "Oh yeah? Someone gentle, kind," I said with a nice smile. "That's it?" "That's it," I said, and went back to organizing my papers, but inside, I was in turmoil. Gentle, kind, patient. By smile, these words could describe me, but they could also describe just about anyone. I wanted to ask him, "Is the person you're talking about me?" But I didn't dare. I was afraid he'd say no, and I'd be humiliated. I was also afraid he'd say yes, because then I'd have even less idea what to do. That feeling of being caught between a rock and a hard place was more agonizing than any exam. The turning point came on an rainy evening. That afternoon had been perfectly normal. I finished my last class, packed my things, and was ready to head home. But just as I stepped out of the tutoring center, the sky darkened, followed by a gust of wind. and then large raindrops began pelting down. I didn't have an umbrella. I stood under the awning at the entrance, watching the rain get heavier, calculating whether I should run back inside to get my umbrella. But my umbrella was in the office on the 3rd floor. By the time I ran up and back down, I'd probably be soaked anyway. Just as I was hesitating, a voice came from behind me, "No umbrella." I turned around. It was Liu Shihong. He was standing behind me, holding a black umbrella in one hand and a bag in the other, also apparently just getting off work. "Yeah, forgot it," I said. "I'll walk you." "We're not even going the same way." "Says who?" I moved. "Now we're going the same way." I looked at him skeptical. "When did you move?" "Yesterday." "Moved where?" "Guess." "I can't guess." He smiled, opened his umbrella, and stepped up beside me. "Let's go. You'll see when we get there." We walked into the rain together. The umbrella wasn't very big, a bit of a squeeze for two people. He tilted it as far as he could toward me, leaving his own shoulder exposed. His shirt was soon soaked. "Move the umbrella toward you. We're getting drenched." "It's fine." "That's not healthy. You'll catch a cold." "Wouldn't that be better?" He looked down at me, eyes sparkling with amusement. "If I catch a cold, you can take care of me." My heart skipped a beat. "Who said I'd take care of you?" I turned my head away, pretending to look at the puddles on the road. He didn't say anything, but I felt his arm brush lightly against mine. Not accidental, deliberate. That touch was feather light, like a dragonfly skimming water. But that one touch sent an electric current through my entire body. I didn't dare look at him, and I didn't dare pull away. So we walked like that, shoulders almost touching, surrounded by the sound of rain. Everything around us blurred, only he remained clear. When we reached my building, I stopped too. "Here we are," I said. "Here we are." The same exchange as last time, but this time was different. Instead of turning to leave, he stood there, looking at me. Rain dripped from the umbrella ribs, splashing into tiny droplets on the ground. Half his shoulder was completely soaked, his shirt clinging to his skin, outlining the contours of his shoulder and arm. He didn't wipe them away. He just looked at me. "Shania." "Yeah? Have you ever wondered why I moved over here?" I knew the answer in my heart, but I shook my head anyway. He stepped forward, closer to me. Now I could clearly see the water droplets on his eyelashes, smell that familiar laundry detergent scent, feel the warmth of his breath brushing against my cheek. "Because every day when I walk you home," he said, his voice so soft it was almost a whisper, as if afraid of disturbing something, "I can stand downstairs a little longer and look up at the light in your window." My eyes suddenly stung. "You stand downstairs every night?" I asked. "Not every night," he said. "Just sometimes. I just want to stay a little longer." "Then why didn't you tell me?" "I was afraid you'd find me annoying." "How do you know I'd find you annoying?" He looked at me, those eyes even deeper in the rain. "Would you?" I didn't answer. I stood on my tiptoes and gave him a light kiss on the cheek. My kiss was brief, maybe not even a full second, but the moment my lips touched his skin, the entire world went silent. The wind disappeared. Even the sound of my heartbeat disappeared. All that remained was the warmth of his cheek against my lips, warm and real. When I pulled back, he was frozen. He stood there, completely still, as if under a spell. Rain streamed down his cheeks, and I couldn't tell if it was rain or something else. "Liu Shihong," I called. No response. "Liu Shihong." He finally snapped out of it. He looked at me, and there was something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not surprise, not confusion, but an emotion that had been suppressed for so long it had finally found its way out. "Chen Nayan," she said. "Yeah? You just, I cut him off quickly, my face burning hot enough to fry an egg. They laughed. This laugh was different from before. Before it had been gentle, lazy, with a touch of distance, but this laugh was unreserved, warm, and carried a kind of satisfied relief, as if he'd finally gotten what he'd been wishing for. "You didn't do anything," he repeated, shaking his head with a smile. "Fine, you didn't do anything." He folded up his umbrella and stood in front of me, letting the rain fall directly on him. He didn't seem to care at all. "Then I want to do something," he said, "and you're not allowed to say no." "What?" He reached out and gently cut my face in his hands. His hands were cold, chilled by the rain, but when they touched my cheeks they felt hot. His thumb brushed lightly over my cheekbone, so tender, as if he were touching something fragile. He leaned in slowly. I could see my own reflection in his eyes, see raindrops falling from his hair, landing between our faces. I closed my eyes, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might leap out of my throat. When his lips met mine, my mind went completely blank. His lips were cold, the tasting of rain, with a hint of cool mint. He kissed me very gently, very slowly, as if testing to make sure I wouldn't push him away before daring to deepen it. I didn't push him away. I reached out and grabbed his silk shirt, holding on tight, as if afraid he might run away. The rain grew heavier and heavier. We stood there at the edge of the awning, kissing as if we'd forgotten everything else. Occasionally someone passed by we didn't care. The whole world had vanished, leaving only him and me, his lips in mine, his breath in mine. I don't know how long passed before he finally pulled back. He rested his forehead against mine, breathing a little heavy, eyes half closed, lips still glistening. Shan Na Young, he murmured. Yeah, I like you. When he said those 3 words, his voice trembled slightly as if they'd been weighing on his heart for so long. And now that they were finally out, he didn't quite know what to do. I know. You know? Yeah, I've known for a long time. Then why didn't you say anything? I was waiting for you to go first. He laughed and pulled me into his arms, holding me tight. I could feel his heartbeat thump, thump, thump mixing with mine until I couldn't tell which was which. I was waiting for a better moment, he said in my ear. I didn't expect you to kiss me first. Too slow. I mumbled into his chest. I thought, he said. Won't happen again. Again? Yeah. From now on, when I want to kiss you, I'll just kiss you. I looked up at him. His eyes sparkled like stars, and they were full of me. You sure? Sure. No regrets. No regrets. He lowered his head and kissed me again. This time, it wasn't tentative or careful. It was confident and passionate, carrying the relief of certainty. Gently cradling my head, tilting my face up to meet his kiss. The rain kept falling, but we didn't care anymore. After that day, we became a couple. Our co-workers figured it out quickly because the way we acted around each other had changed. Before, we'd sneak glances at each other. Now we held hands openly. Before, he'd accidentally buy too much food. Now he'd deliberately buy 2 of the same. Before, he'd secretly sit in my chair. Now, he'd sit in it openly, claiming he was warming it up for me. When Sister Fang saw us together, she wasn't surprised at all. I could tell from the start. She said, "You two and your little secrets, who are you fooling?" I smiled, embarrassed. But Shi Han smiled too, his hand quietly reaching over to hold mine. Those days were the happiest of my life. Going to work became the thing I looked forward to most, not because the job was interesting. We ate lunch together, left work together, left work together, walked that short distance home together. Sometimes he'd take the long way, saying he wanted to walk with me a little more. I'd tease him, asking if he wanted to get rained on more. He'd say, "So what if I get rained on? Then you'll take care of me." He did catch a cold once. We'd gone on a date to a faraway park, walk a lot, worked up a sweat. On the way back, the wind was strong. He took off his jacket and put it on me, bathing himself in just a thin t-shirt. The next day, he was sneezing, sniffling, his voice hoarse. I bought him medicine and ginger tea and brought them to his door. When he opened it, his hair was a mess. His eyes already looked pitiful. I handed him the things and said, "That's what you get for being stubborn. See?" He took the things and grabbed my hand and pulled me inside. "What are you doing?" I yelped. "Taking care of me," he said, his voice raspy, a mischievous grin on his face. "You said you would when I got sick." I was joking. I wasn't. He pushed me down onto the couch, poured himself a cup of hot water, then came back and sat next to me, resting his head on my shoulder and nuzzling against me like a big dog. "Shen Na Yang," he mumbled and he mumbled. "Yeah? From now on, every time I get sick, you have to take care of me. What if you're sick all the time? Then I'll be sick all the time. You're crazy. Yeah?" Looking up at me with eyes full of laughter. "I have a disease." His words made my skin crawl with cheesiness, but my heart felt like it was filled with honey. I reached up and felt his forehead. It was a little warm. I pushed his head back onto my shoulder and said, "Stop talking. You'll stay with me." "I'll stay." He closed his eyes, his breathing slowly evening out. I sat on the couch, listening to the occasional sound of cars outside, watching his peaceful sleeping face, and suddenly thought I could live like this for a lifetime and never get tired of it. But good things never last long. After the summer session ended, business at the tutoring center slowed down. Sister Fang starting costs, and our hours as part-time teachers were slashed by more than half. Both Lu Shihan's and my income took a hit. Life became tight. We talked about whether we should find new jobs, but we'd only been together for a short while. Neither of us wanted work stress to affect our relationship. We decided to hold on a little longer and see if things improved. But things didn't improve. They got worse. Sister Fang owed us 2 months' wages, saying she'd pay once the cash flow improved. We waited a month. Then another month the money never came. Liu Shihan started picking up freelance work writing copy, proofreading anything to earn a little. I also found some translation gigs online, staying up until the early hours every night, earning just barely enough to get by. During that time, our dates turned into eating instant noodles in his rental apartment, watching free web series, chatting about nothing in particular. Sometimes he'd suddenly fall silent, staring out the window. I'd ask what he was thinking, and he'd say nothing. But I knew what he was thinking. He was thinking, how much longer can this last? Finally, one day, he told me he'd found a new job, an editorial position at a publishing house, with a much better salary. But it was in another city. His voice was calm when he said it, but the hand holding mine was trembling. Are you going to take it? I asked. I don't know, he said. Do you want to? He was quiet for a long time. Then I don't want to leave you. But you need this job, I said. He didn't answer. He just held me tighter. That night neither of us slept. We lay in bed, facing each other in the dark, unable to see each other's expressions, but able to feel each other's breath. Shen Nayan, he said. Yeah? Will you come with me? I paused. Come with you? Yeah? We'll go together, start over? I hesitated, not because I was attached to my current life, but because I had family and friends in this city. I had a job that didn't pay much but was stable. Going to a new city meant leaving behind everything familiar and facing unknown risks and challenges. Let me think about it, I said. Okay? He said, holding my hand in the dark. I didn't go with him. Not because I didn't like him enough, because I had my own concerns. My parents were getting older. Their health not great. I couldn't just leave them behind, and I just started to find my footing in this city. I didn't want to start all over again. He understood my choice, but understanding didn't mean it didn't hurt. The day he left, I went to the train station to see him off. He had a large backpack on his shoulders and a suitcase in his hand. He stood at the entrance, looking at me. Call me when you get there, I said. Okay? Eat well. Don't stay up too late. Okay? Take care of yourself. Okay? 3 okays, she said each one quickly, as if afraid that if he said them any slower, he might change his mind. I looked at him, my eyes singing, and I held back my tears. I didn't want him to see me cry, didn't want to make it harder for him to leave. Shen Naya? He suddenly set down his suitcase, walked over, and pulled me into his arms. He held me so tight I could barely breathe. I'll come back, he said in my ear. Yeah? Wait for me. Okay? He let me go, turned, and walked through the entrance. After a few steps, he looked back at me. Then he smiled, that same gentle smile as before, but now tinged with a hint of bitterness. Then he disappeared into the crowd. I stood outside the entrance, watching the stream of people coming and going. Finally, I couldn't hold it in anymore. After he left, we stayed in touch. We called every day, texted, video chatted. He'd tell me about his work and life in the new city. I'd tell him what was happening here. He tried to maintain the shape of a relationship, but distance is like an invisible termite. It gnaws away at the foundation. Bit by bit, we got busy, more and more over time, slower and slower to reply to messages. I got anxious, started overthinking, started wondering if he still liked me. We started fighting over trivial things, but the fights were vicious. He said I was too sensitive. I said he was too cold. He said I didn't understand his stress. I said he didn't care about my feelings. We'd fight and regret it, apologize, make up, then fight again a few days later. That cycle was exhausting. Once, we had a particularly bad fight. I don't even remember what started it, but I remember something he said that cut deep. He said, Shen Nayan, if this is too hard for you, just let it go. When I heard those words, I felt like I'd been drenched in ice water. What do you mean? I mean, his voice was tired. I don't want to make you suffer. If being with me makes you unhappy, then you don't want to be with me anymore? I interrupted. He didn't answer. Liu Shihong, listen to me. I'm not afraid of the hard parts. I'm afraid of you not wanting me anymore. A long silence on the other end of the line. Then he said something I'll never forget for the rest of my life. How could I not want you? His voice cracked a little. I dream about you every night. I dream about that night you kissed me downstairs. I dream about the way we kissed in the rain. Shen Nayan, every single day I'm here. I'm thinking about you. I held the phone to my ear, tears streaming down my face. Then come back, I said. What? I said come back. I don't want to do this anymore. I want you here with me. Another silence. But this silence was different. This one held hesitation, struggle, the weight of a major decision being made. Give me some time, he said finally. Okay. A month later, he came back. He quit the publishing house job and returned to this city. He said jobs could be found again, but the person who made his heart race, maybe there was only one of those in a lifetime. The day he came back, I went to the airport to meet him. When he came through the exit, I spotted him immediately. He'd lost weight and gotten thinner, but his eyes were still as bright as ever. When he saw me, they curved into crescent moons. He walked up to me, set down his luggage, and looked at me. I'm back, he said. Yeah? You're not going to hug me. Instead of hugging him, I stood on my tiptoes and kissed him on the lips. Just like that day in the rain. He froze for a second, then laughed, reaching out to pull me into his arms. Shanayan? Yeah? I'm never leaving again. You said it. I said it. He lowered his head and kissed me. The airport was crowded. Announcements blared over the speakers. People walked past us dragging suitcases. Glancing back curiously, we didn't care. In that moment, nothing else in the world mattered. What mattered was that he was back. What mattered was that we no longer had to say, I miss you through a screen. What mattered was that I could wake up every morning and see him first thing, and go to sleep every night with him as the last thing I saw. We're still together now. He didn't go to another city again. He found a new job where the salary isn't as high as a publishing house job, but he enjoys it. I changed jobs too, and I'm making more than before. We've rented a small apartment, adopted a cat, and on weekends we cook together, watch movies, go to the park. Life is uneventful, but solid. Sometimes at night, lying in bed, I'll suddenly say, Shania? Yeah? That day in the rain, if you hadn't kissed me, I might still be too afraid to say anything. Why? Because I was afraid you'd reject me. Afraid that if I said it, we couldn't even be friends anymore. I turned over to look at him. In the dark I couldn't make out his expression, but I knew he was smiling. Then why didn't you say it sooner? I told you I was waiting for you to go first. And instead, I kissed you first. He laughed low and warm, with a hint of survivor's relief. So, the greatest luck in my life was forgetting my umbrella by that day. You didn't forget, I called him out. You left it on purpose. How do you know? Because I saw you pack 2 umbrellas in your bag that morning. He went quiet. Then he laughed happily, like a child caught sneaking candy. You got me. Liu Shihong, you're too sneaky. If I weren't a little sneaky, how would I have won you over? He leaned and unkissed my forehead. Good night. Good night. I closed my eyes, listening to his steady breathing, and thought this is good. Outside the window, it sounded like rain had started again, raindrops stabbing against the glass, making a soft, scattered sound, just like the sound when we kissed in the rain that night. Some people are worth waiting for, no matter how long. Some ambiguities, if you get through them, last a lifetime. 3 months after he moved back, our little apartment saw its first autumn rain. That night, I got home late from work. When I pushed open the door, the apartment was dark. I thought he hadn't come home yet and was reaching for the light switch when suddenly, arms wrapped around me from behind. His chin rested on my shoulder, his breath warm and damp against the side of my neck, tickling me. Why didn't you turn on the light? I asked, waiting for you to come home and do it. Are you 5 years old? Not 5, he said, tightening his arms a little, his voice muffled. I missed you today. I laughed, turned around in his arms, and cupped his face in the darkness. His cheeks were cool. He'd been out in the autumn wind and hadn't warmed up yet. I rubbed my thumb over his cheekbone and felt him smile into my palm. What did you miss about me? I asked. I missed you kissing me in the rain, he said, his tone serious, as if reciting a text. I missed the first time you said my name. I missed the way you used to sit in the library staring out the window. I missed how you'd secretly test the water temperature before pouring it for me. When did I ever secretly test the temperature? I interrupted him. Every morning, he said. You thought I didn't notice? Every time before you poured water for me, you pour a little on the back of your own hand first, hissed it, and then give it to me. My heart softened completely. All those little things I thought he'd never notice, he'd seen every single one, and remembered. Liu Shihong, I said. Yeah? When did you start liking me? He thought for a moment. Guess. The first day of orientation. Wrong. The day you started filling my water cup. Wrong. Then when? He lowered his head, his lips brushing my ear, his voice soft as a sigh. The first time you taught a class. I was walking by the classroom and heard you say to the kids, everyone has a little shining person running inside them. You just have to find it. And I thought right then I need to keep this girl by my side. My eyes welled up instantly. Then why didn't you say something sooner? I was afraid of scaring you, he said. Back then you looked at me like I was just another coworker. I was afraid that if I said something you'd avoid me. So instead, you put water on my desk, warmed up my chair, deliberately bought my favorite food, and pretended we were going the same way. Yeah, he laughed a little sheepishly. Pretty stupid, right? Extremely stupid. And you still like me? I didn't answer. I stood on my tiptoes and kissed him. Outside, the autumn rain pattered softly. Inside, our breaths intertwined. His hand slid from my waist to my back, his palms burning hot, warming my skin through my thin shirt. I leaned closer to him, feeling his heartbeat through his chest fast and strong, like a drum. The way he kissed me had changed. It was sedative, careful, as if afraid of breaking something. But not anymore. Now he kissed with certainty and a touch of greed, as if trying to make up for all the months we'd spent apart. His tongue traced my lips slowly, unhurriedly, and it made me go weak in the knees, leaving me to lean against him, clutching the back of his shirt. We stumbled from the doorway to the living room, from the living room to the bedroom. Neither of us spoke, just the occasional sound of something being knocked over, and the mingling of our breaths. He laid me gently on the edge of the bed and crouched down, looking up at me. The bedroom was dark, lit only by the street light filtering through the window, casting his face in half light and half shadow. There was a light in his eyes, the kind you can't hide, the kind that wells up from deep inside, scalding, consuming. Shania, he said, his voice low, like the final note of a cello. Yeah, may I? He'd asked this question many times. The first time was in the rain, when he was cupping my face. He said it was his rule as long as I showed the slightest reluctance. I reached up and hooked my arms around his neck, pulling him toward me. If you don't hurry up, I whispered in his ear, I might change my mind. He laughed, a laugh that vibrated in the hollow of my neck, sending shivers through my whole body. Then he stopped asking. His kisses started at my forehead and moved down, inch by inch, my brow, the tip of my nose, the corner of my mouth, my chin, my earlobe, my collarbone, lingering at each spot for a long time, as if confirming something. His fingers threaded through my hair, his fingertips massaging my scalp gently, sending tingles from the top of my head all the way to my fingertips, making my whole body tense and then relax. Relax, he murmured. I can't. Let me help. His hand slid from my hair to my shoulder, from my shoulder to my arm, and finally took my hand, interlacing our fingers. His palm was large, enveloping my entire hand, warm, dry, strong. He squeezed my fingers gently, as if to say, don't be afraid. The rain outside had grown louder at some point, drowning out all our sounds. The blanket had been kicked to the foot of the bed, the pillow pushed askew, my back rested against his chest. I could feel his body heat, seeping into me, like holding a hot water bottle on a winter day, so comforting it made me want to cry. He was behind me, his chin nestled in the hollow of my shoulder. His breath was heavy and hot against the delicate skin behind my ear, raising a fine layer of goosebumps. Does it hurt? He asked, his voice hoarse beyond recognition. No, really. Only then did he continue. He moved very, very slowly, as if walking a long road with no hurry to reach the end, running only to memorize every inch of the scenery along the way. My fingers gripped the back of his hand tightly, my nails pressing into his skin. He held my hand even tighter. Later, I turned to face him, cupping his face in my hands, looking at him in the faint street twilight. A thin sheen of sweat covered his forehead. His glasses were long gone, and those eyes usually hidden behind the lenses now looked at me with nothing in the way. And then I saw tenderness, desire, a hint of vulnerability, and something else that made my chest take. It was unreserved trust. Lu Shihong, I said. Yeah, if you ever dare to leave again, I said, I'll never speak to you again. He smiled, his eyes reddened. Never leaving again, he said, his voice trembling slightly. Not even if you paid me. When he leaned down to kiss me, I felt something warm land on my face. I couldn't tell if it was rain or something else. After that night, our lives fell into a different rhythm. Every morning when the alarm went off, he'd refuse to get up and leaned his face in the back of my neck. I'd have to call his name several times before he'd mumble a response, then turn me over to face him, kiss my forehead, and say 5 more minutes. I'd always say, we can't, we're going to be late. And he'd always say, so we're late. The sky won't fall. We were usually late anyway. On weekends, we'd go to the market together. He picked out the produce, and I haggled. He took his vegetable picking very seriously, examining each bunch of greens like an appraiser examining an artifact. The vegetable vendor would always laugh at him, saying, young man, are you cooking for your girlfriend with all that picking? And he'd smile and say, yeah, for my girl at home. Every time he said it, he'd glance at me with a hint of pride in his eyes, as if to say, "See, how great I am." I call him cheesy, but inside I was bursting with sweetness. Once when we were cooking at home, he cut his finger while chopping vegetables. I heard him hiss and ran over to look. The cut wasn't deep, but blood was welling up. I grabbed his hand, ran it under the faucet, then went looking for a bandage. When I came back, he was standing in the same spot, holding his finger up, still bleeding, but he was smiling. "You're still smiling." I glared at him. "Shania, what? The way you just ran off to find a bandage," he said, like a cat with its fur all puffed up. "You're the one with puffed up fur." I stuck the bandage on his finger with more force than necessary. He hissed again, then turned his hand over and held mine, while letting me pull away. "Don't move," he said, his voice suddenly low. "Let me hold this for a minute. Your hand is still bleeding. Bleeding a little won't kill me." Liu Shihong. He laughed and pulled me into his arms, wrapping his uninjured arm around my waist. "You know," he said above my head, "I used to think being alone was fine. Do whatever you want. Don't have to wait for anyone. Don't have to miss anyone. But after I met you, I realized what I had before wasn't living. It was just existing." I buried my face in his chest. "Stop saying things like that," I mumbled. "You'll make me cry." "So cry," he said. "It's not like I haven't seen you cry before. When have I ever cried in front of you?" "The day you saw me off at the train station," Wu said. "You were standing outside the entrance and thinking I couldn't see you, but I kept looking back. You were crying. You wiped your tears away several times and they kept coming. My heart felt like someone was squeezing it." "Then why didn't you come back?" I asked. "Because I was afraid that if I came back, I'd never have the courage to leave again," he said. "But then I realized a place without you in it has no meaning for me." I looked up at him. His eyes were red too. We stood there in the kitchen, holding each other for a long time. The water in the pot had boiled, bubbling away. Sunlight streamed through the window, falling on his shoulder, bright and glittering. As autumn was coming to an end, he took me back to his hometown. His parents lived in a small town not far from our city. Their house wasn't big, but it was clean and tidy. His mother was a very kind woman. The moment she saw me, she took my hand and said, "Gahan talks about you all the time," which made me blush. His father was a man of few words, but he'd silently wash the best fruit and place it in front of me. And when I left, he'd stuff all kinds of local specialties into my bag. On the way back, he asked me, "Were you nervous?" "A little," I said. "Afraid they wouldn't like you?" "Yeah." He reached over and ruffled my hair. "If they dared not to like you, I'd disown them." "Don't be ridiculous, sir." "I mean it," he said, smiling at me. "In my heart, you're number one." "Who's number two?" "My mom." "What about your dad?" "Dad's number 3. Our cat is number 4. So if I'm number 1, does that mean you have to do what I say?" "Theoretically. So when we get home tonight, you're washing my feet." "Not number 1 anymore." He paused for 2 seconds and laughed a helpless, doting laugh. "Fine." That night, he actually did wash my feet. He crouched in the bathroom, adjusted the water temperature, put my feet in the basin, and gently rubbed my soles and arches with his fingertips. He moved slowly and gently, as if doing something very important. I sat on a low stool, looking down at the top of his head, feeling something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't being moved, and it wasn't happiness, it was something more solid. Probably that feeling of "this is the one." "Liu Shihong," I said. "Yeah? Will you always be this good to me?" He looked up at me, his hands still moving. "You've asked that many times, and you've answered differently each time. What kind of answer do you want this time?" "Just the truth." He thought for a moment. "I don't know what will happen in the future. There might be times we fight, times I disappoint you. But I can promise you one thing." "What?" "I will never make you sad on purpose." The water in the basin rippled. My tears had fallen into it. "Shen Nayan, you're crying again." "I'm not." Water splashed on my face. "That's from when you washed your face." He laughed, stood up, bent down, and cupped my face with his wet hands, kissing me on the lips. "Salty," he said, still saying you're not crying. I laughed through my tears and swatted at him. He caught my hand, interlaced our fingers, and drew circles on the back of my hand with his thumb. "Shania." "Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me." "What are you thanking me for?" "For kissing me when I was at my most cowardly," he said. "For not stopping me when I left. For still wanting me when I came back." I looked into his eyes that had made my heart race from the very first time I saw them. In them I saw the light, my reflection, all the ambiguity and longing of the past, and all the possibility and hope of the future. "Liu Shihong." "Yeah?" From now on, you kiss me? He blinked, then smiled. Okay, he said. From now on, I'll be the one to initiate. Then what are you waiting for? He didn't wait. He bent down, pulled me up from the stool, wrapped his arm around my waist, and kissed me deeply. The bathroom light wasn't very bright. Dripping with a soft click, the water in the basin slowly cooled, but our lips were hot, our palms hot, our heartbeats hot too. Outside the window, the wind blew through fallen leaves. Autumn was almost over. Winter was coming. But I wasn't cold, because he was here. That winter came especially early. By mid-November, the temperature had plunged below freezing. The heating in our old apartment wasn't great. Only the top half of the living room radiator was warm, the bottom half was ice cold. I sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket, grading my students' essays. He sat next to me with a book open on his lap, but he hadn't turned a page in ages. What are you reading? I asked. You? Are you reading your book or looking at me? Looking at you, he said, finally raising his head and pushing up his glasses. Books aren't as beautiful as you. I was so flustered by his words that I didn't know what to say. I pulled the blanket up higher to cover my burning face, pulled the blanket back down, and lightly flicked the tip of my nose with his index finger. Shania? Yeah? You're blushing. The heating is too hot. Only the top half of the radiator is hot. Then I'm wearing too many clothes. He laughed, closed his book, set it aside, and leaned his whole body against me, resting his head on my shoulder. His hair tickled my neck. I shrank back, but he only nuzzled closer. Lucy Hung, are you a dog? Poof. I couldn't help laughing out loud. He laughed too, the sound muffled in the hollow of my shoulder, vibrating through half my body. Stop it. I'm not done grading, I said, pushing at him. How many left? A dozen or so. I'll help you grade. You can grade elementary school essays. I have a degree in Chinese literature, he said, looking up with an expression of mock indignation. You think I can't grade elementary school essays? Fine. You do it. I handed him a notebook. Don't give them to low scores. You'll break their little hearts. He took it and treated it seriously. I continued grading the rest. We sat side by side, knees touching, the blanket covering both our legs. The radiator made a faint hissing sound. Occasionally a dog barked outside. The whole room was quiet and warm. After about 10 minutes, he suddenly spoke. Shanayan? Yeah? This essay is really good. What's it about? I dream. My dream is to become a chef, because my mom works very hard and I want to cook her lots of delicious food so she doesn't have to eat takeout anymore. He paused. 3rd grade, 8 years old. An 8-year-old can write a sentence like that, he said, with a softness in his voice I rarely heard. Better than me. What did you write about when you were 8? I don't remember. Probably something like my dad, or my mom. Were they good? No, he admitted. At that said, my writing was like keeping a lot of expenses. I laughed and leaned my head against his shoulder. He put his arm around me, his chin resting on top of my head. Shania? Yeah? When we have kids, who do you think they'll take after in writing? My heart skipped a beat. Who said anything about having kids with you? I said, my voice barely above a whisper. You don't want to have kids with me? We don't have to. He said casually, as if discussing what to have for dinner. Having a cat is fine too. You make it sound like it's up to me. It is up to you, he said, looking down at me, his glasses reflecting the lamplight. You're the boss. I buried my face in his chest. His heartbeat came through his chest thump. Composed, steady and strong. I closed my eyes and listened to that sound, thinking it was the best music in the world. That weekend, he actually brought home a cat. It was an orange shade, skin and bones. Digging through the trash by the dumpster in our complex. He said he saw it on his way home, crouched down, and called out here. Kitty, and the cat came over and rubbed against his pant leg. Then it just followed me up, he said, holding the cat up to me. Look how well behaved it is. The cat was indeed well behaved. Like it was being cute. You're sure you want to keep it? I asked. Sure. Did you name it? Ayan, he said. I looked at the cat and thought for a moment. Let's call it Nyangdao. Hyundao, like ice skate? Yeah, sticky and clingy, just like you. He laughed, held the cat up higher, and said to it, Hyundao, this is your mom. Lucy Hong, this is your mom, he repeated. He's serious, as if introducing a family member. You have to listen to her. No biting her charging cables, no climbing on her computer desk, no causing trouble when she's grading homework. Nyang me owed one soon. Who knows whether in agreement or protest. As it turned out, Nyang didn't keep a single one of those promises. We chewed through 3 of my charging cables, claimed my computer desk as its personal bed, and every time I tried to grade homework, they would sprawl across my stimulants, notebooks, refusing to move no matter how many times I shoot it. Liu Shihan would pretend to swat it, raising his hand and then bringing it down gently, turning it into a pet. You spoil it too much, I said. It's still a baby. It's a year old. A year old is still a baby, he said, cradling Nayan Gao in his arms and rocking it like an infant. Isn't that right? Nayan Gao, you'll always be daddy's little baby. I watched him holding the cat, and something in me felt a little dazed. When I first met this man, I thought he was cold and quiet. He didn't talk much, didn't smile much, sat quietly in corners like a tree that couldn't speak. And after we got together, I realized he wasn't that person at all. He was childish jealous when Nayan Gao upped against me more than him. He was sensitive if I so much as furrowed my brow. He'd be nervous for ages. He gave all of his tenderness, his childishness, his awkwardness to me without reservation. It felt like being handed a hot water bottle on a freezing winter day, about the kind of heat that blazes and fades, but a steady, fitting, reassuring warmth. In mid-December, my birthday arrived. I hadn't planned to celebrate. I'd never cared much about birthdays. When I was a kid, my family didn't have much money. Celebrating meant a bowl of noodles with an extra head. As I got older, it mattered even less. It was just another year older, nothing more. But Liu Shihan didn't see it that way. The week before my birthday, he started acting mysterious. Every day he came home later than usual. When I asked why, he said he was working late. What kind of work? Work stuff? Then he changed the subject and asked, was Nayan Gao good today? I was curious, but I didn't press. My birthday fell on a Friday. I got home from work, pushed open the door, and the apartment was pitch black. Liu Shihan, I called. No answer. I called again. Still no answer. Nayan Gao didn't come running to rub against my legs like usual. I was about to reach for the light switch when I saw a glow coming from the living room. Not electric light, handle light. Flickering, orange-yellow light. Liu Shihan walked out from the kitchen, carrying a cake. Candles were stuck into it, their light casting a warm glow over his face. Behind him followed Nayan Gao, a red bow tied around his neck looking equal parts ridiculous and adorable. Happy birthday, Shen Nayan, he said. I stood in the doorway, frozen. When did you get a cake? I took the afternoon off to order it. You took time off work just to buy a cake? Not just that, she said, setting the cake on the coffee table and walking over to me. Come here. He took my hand and led me into the living room. That was when I noticed the living room had been transformed. A string of twinkling lights hung on the wall next to the couch. Several dishes sat on the coffee table, covered with plastic wraps still steaming. On the TVs, there was a photo frame with a picture of the two of us from that day at the park, me leaning on his shoulder, him looking down at me, both of us smiling like idiots. You did all this? I asked. Yeah, he said with a hint of pride in his voice. Hung the lights, out the frame, tied the bow on Nayan Gao. You can cook? No, he admitted honestly, so you might want to prepare yourself. The taste might not be great. I walked over to the coffee table and lifted the plastic wrap. A dish of scrambled eggs with tomatoes, a plate of stir-fried greens, and another of sweet and sour pork ribs. The presentation wasn't great. The eggs were a little burnt, and the ribs were dark brown to the point of being black. These ribs, I hesitated. Are they edible? Probably, he said, his confidence clearly lacking. I tried one. Didn't get diarrhea. I laughed, my eyes stinging. Liu Shihan. Yeah? Why did you do all this? He looked at me, the candlelight dancing in his eyes. Because no one ever gave you a proper birthday before, he said. Starting this year, I want to give you one every year. My tears finally broke through and fell. He panicked, fumbling to wipe them away. Don't cry, don't cry. Did I do something wrong? You don't like the cake? The ribs are the light. I shook my head, grabbed his hand, and pressed my face into his palm. I don't dislike anything, I mumbled. I like it all. Then why are you crying? Because I'm happy. He was silent for 2 seconds, then let out a soft sigh and pulled me into his arms. His embrace was very warm, smelling of cooking oil and laundry detergent mixed together, a scent that belonged to home. Shania? Yeah. Make a wish. He pointed at the cake. I let go of him, walked to the cake, and closed my eyes. The candlelight filtered through my eyelids, warm orange red. Then I opened my eyes and blew out the candles. What did you wish for? He asked. If I tell you, it won't come true. I'll make it come true for you. You're not a genie. For you I can be. I looked at him, those serious, gentle eyes, full of me. I wished I said, "And you'll be the one to celebrate my birthday every year from now on." He smiled, his eyes reddening. "That wish," she said, "you don't even have to wish for. I do it anyway." He stepped forward, cut my face. His lips tasted sweet, covered in cake frosting. I wrapped my arms around his waist, clutching the back of his shirt, feeling him tremble slightly. Diane got me out from somewhere, as if for testing our neglect. We pulled apart slightly, foreheads touching, catching our breath. "We haven't cut the cake yet," I said. "In a minute. The food's getting cold. We'll reheat it." Diane was watching. Let him watch. He kissed me again, deeper this time. His tongue parted my lips gently, tasting of frosting and something else, something that was just him. My back pressed against the edge of the dining table. There was nowhere to retreat, and I didn't want to. His hands braced on either side of me, boxing me in like a worm wall. Diane got me out once more, then turned and walked away, probably fed up with our behavior. That night, we ate the slightly burnt eggs in the dark, unit unfightable ribs. The taste really wasn't great, but for some reason, every bite was delicious. After we finished, I was doing the dishes when he came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, and rested his chin on my shoulder, watching me wash. "Shania?" "Yeah? I'll make you an even better cake." "You know how to make cake?" "I can learn." "Can you?" "For you, I'll learn even if I can't." I laughed. Droplets of water slid from my fingertips into the sink, making a crisp sound. "Liu Shihong?" "Yeah? You know, I used to think being alone was just fine. But now," I turned my head to look at him, "it's better with you here." His eyes lit up like the candlelight on the cake that night, warm and bright. He reached over and turned off the faucet, turned me around to face him. My wet hands rested on his shoulders, leaving the damp handprints on his shirt. "Shanayan?" "Yeah? Happy birthday." "You've already said that. Can't I say it again?" "You can. Say it as many times as you want." He smiled, lowered his head, and pressed a kiss to my forehead. The wind howled outside. Winter nights are long and cold, but inside there was warm yellow light. Leftover cake, I am dozing on the couch, and him. Just before the spring festival, he took me back to his hometown again. It was my second visit, but this time was different. This time I was the girlfriend, just one word different, but the meaning was worlds apart. I started getting nervous 2 days before we left, rummaging through my entire closet without finding a single suitable outfit. He came up behind me, took the coat I'd been agonizing over for half an hour out of my hands, and pulled a cream-colored sweater over my head. "Wear this," he said. "You don't even know what color your mom likes. My mom likes you. What color you're wearing doesn't matter." The night we arrived, his mother made a huge dinner. The kitchen was steamy and loud with the hum of the range hood. His mother stood at the stove in her apron, busy cooking, while his father helped from the sidelines, one chopping scallions, one smashing garlic, working together with unexpected mercy. Liu Shihong walked through the door and headed straight for the kitchen, wrapping his arms around his mother's waist from behind, then patting his father's shoulder, calling out, "Dad." That scene warmed my heart. He was gentle with me, but softer with his family. At dinner, his mother kept piling food into my bowl. Braised pork ribs, steamed perch, garlic broccoli, lotus root and pork ribs, and peach dish heaped to overflowing. I kept saying, "That's enough as I ate," while she kept saying, "Eat more, you're too thin and adding more." Liu Shihong watched from the side, then picked up a piece of fish belly with his chopsticks and put it in my bowl, saying something that nearly made me spray rice across the table. "Mom, stop patting. She can't eat that much. Her stomach is small, but she's a foodie. Let her pick what she wants." His mother looked at him, then at me, then smiled a knowing smile. That night I stayed in the guest room upstairs. The sheets and comforter were freshly changed, smelling of sunshine, dry and warm. A glass of warm water sat on the nightstand, next to a small plate of peeled pomelo. I saw these things when I came out of the shower, and my heart softened. These weren't his doing, of course. His mother had prepared them, but in that moment, I realized very clearly that I was being seriously welcomed into a family. There soft knocks on the door. I opened it to find Liu Shihong standing there in his langue, hair still damp, holding a glass of warm milk. "Still awake?" I asked. "Can't sleep," he said, handing me the milk. "Mom told me to bring this up. She said warm milk helps you sleep." I took the milk. He leaned against the doorframe with no sign of leaving. The hallway light was already off, and only the light from the guest room fell on him, gilding his silhouette in warm yellow. His hair was wet, a few strands plastered to his forehead, making him look several years younger, like a teenage boy. "Want to come in for a bit?" I said. He looked at me, hesitation, hope, and a suppressed shyness all in that look. I stepped aside, and he stepped in. The guest room bed wasn't big, about 8 meters wide. Two people sitting on it left little room to spare. We sat side by side, shoulders touching, bellies beating. The milk steamed gently. I took a couple of sips. It was sweet. His mother must have added honey. Nervous, a little? Don't be, he said, reaching over to hold my hand. My home is your home. I turned to look at him. His profile in the lamplight looked especially soft. High-bridged nose, slightly upturned lips, and those eyes that automatically curved whenever they looked at me. Liu Shihan. Yeah? Did you tell your mom about us? I did. What did she say? He thought for a moment, his smile deepening. She said I should treat you well and not bully you. Will you? Will I what? Bully me? He turned to look at me, his gaze slowly traveling over my face, finally landing on my lips. There was light in that gaze, warmth, something that made my heart race. Yes, he said, his voice dropping, but not the kind of bullying you're thinking of. When he leaned in, I closed my eyes. His lips tasted of mint toothpaste, cool at first, but turning hot the moment they met mine. His hands didn't wander, they just cradled the back of my head, his fingertips drawing slow circles on the skin behind my ear. The milk glass made a small sound as I set it on the nightstand. Somehow, my hands had found their way to his shoulders, feeling the shape of his shoulder blades through his thin langue firm. He kissed me for a long time, so long that I felt like I might melt into his arms. So long that if Nyan Gao had been there, he probably would have meowed in protest. When he finally pulled back, both of us were breathless. He rested his forehead against mine, eyes closed, lashes trembling slightly. Chen Nyan? Yeah? I'm not leaving tonight, okay? I looked into his eyes. In them I saw cautious hope, barely concealed longing, and a hint of if you say no, I'll leave right now. I didn't answer. I reached over and turned off the lamp. In the darkness, I heard him laugh softly. Then the covers were lifted, and he lay down beside me. The bed was so small that we had to lie on our sides, facing each other, knees touching, breath mingling. His hand slid from my waist to my back, gently pulling me into his arms. My face pressed against his chest. I could hear his heartbeat impossibly fast. You said you couldn't sleep, I mumbled in the dark. With your heart beating that fast, you'll never sleep. Feel yours, he said, taking my hand and pressing it to his chest. I listened for 3 more seconds. Okay, maybe that is pretty fast. So it's not just me? His voice came from above me. Amused, I pinched his waist slightly. He hissed, but didn't pull away. Instead, he held me tighter. Shen Nayan. Happy New Year. It's not the new year yet. Can't I say it early? Yes, sir. Then say it back. I was quiet for 2 seconds, then buried my face deeper into his chest. Happy New Year. Liu Shihong. In the distance outside the window, sporadic firecrackers went off, someone celebrating early. The winter wind rattled the window frame. The heating in the room was strong, and under the covers, it was even warmer. Slowly in his arms I closed my eyes. This was his family's guest room, a place I didn't yet know well, but because he was here, everything felt safe.